Hello guys, welcome back. Today, I want to make some new predictions for the Seattle Kraken expansion team roster. Now, a few months ago, I think back in February, I made a casual video just explaining who I thought might be available for the Seattle expansion team, but there's been a lot that's changed since then, and since we've seen the whole new team, the whole new logo, and the Seattle Kraken being released, I thought, hey, I might as well do another version of this, and thankfully, an updated one. Now, when it comes to the potential Seattle Kraken expansion draft, who do I see being available for the Seattle Kraken, and who do I see them taking in the 2021 expansion draft as of now in 2020? Watch till the end for all my predictions and picks, and of course, hit that big red subscribe button for more videos just like this one. Now, another reason I wanted to do an updated expansion draft was because of some of my predictions in the last video. Obviously, it was recorded back in February, and a lot has changed since then. I mean, I look at the St. Louis Blues, I saw Alex Pietrangelo as a guy who would stay, but now with the cap being flat over the next few seasons and the uncertainty surrounding stuff like that, it's really seeming a lot less likely that Pietrangelo stays after this free agency. And I think that's the case for a lot of players also that could have been available. So obviously, contrasting to February, it's no wonder that situations have moved, but there's been a lot of players especially that could have been available for Seattle that in terms of actual availability are not the case. I mean, another player I had is Oscar Lindblom, and at this point, there's almost no way they're not protecting him. Now, in terms of what their roster could actually look like, when you have Ron Francis as your GM, it's kind of unpredictable, but during his time in Carolina, he was trying to build up a strong defensive core. Obviously, now they built it up into something that is one of the best defensive cores in the NHL, and I think that's what Seattle will try to do as well. Personally, from the crop that could potentially be there, I think they have a great balance of forwards, of defense, of goaltenders to choose from, and I think Seattle will be a pretty balanced team, not too many stars, but not too many bad players either. And that is pretty evident in the forward core, and I'm going to start out with our potential first line for Seattle. For the first line for the Seattle Kraken, I have James Van Riemsdyk as a left winger from the Flyers, Alexander Kerfoot from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and Patrick Hornqvist from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, this depends a lot on who is available. Obviously, with JVR, I think it's kind of between him and Voracek, but the more I think about it, the more I think Philadelphia will still go Voracek in that expansion draft. And when it comes to Kerfoot, it might be a little bit unlikely that he's still in Toronto by the time this draft actually happens, but I think he might just be kept for fodder. He might just be kept to be an expansion draft pick because Toronto can't afford to lose too many other guys. Then going on to Patrick Hornqvist, who at this point will be in his mid-30s. He won't be anything special, but still a guy who can produce on a middle six and on a first line for the Seattle Kraken. Then going on to our second line here, I have Alex Killorn from the Tampa Bay Lightning, Dylan Dubé from the Calgary Flames, and right now, at least, it might end up changing, but of course, Anderson from the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, again, this is subject to change potentially, but you got Killorn, who I ended up having Johnson as the pick from Tampa last time, but the more I think about it, the more I think that they might want to upload that Killorn contract, and I think even by then, in that expansion draft, Johnson might be gone as well. You have Dylan Dubé, who I was kind of debating on if they would protect. It's between him or like a guy like Mikael Backlund or Andrew Mangiapane, and I'm not sure if Dylan Dubé by next year is at the level of those two guys. Then you go on to Anderson, which for the Columbus Blue Jackets, very solid player when he is healthy, but this season hasn't been much because of those injuries. Who knows what it's like in 2021, but I think at this point it's safe to say that he might just be traded before that too. Then going on to the third line of Joel Armia from the Montreal Canadiens, Adam Lowry from the Winnipeg Jets, and Brett Connolly from the Columbus Blue Jackets, from the Florida Panthers. Now, Joel Armia is a guy that had a very strong season for the Habs this year, but I'm not sure will be protected by them by the time this rolls around. He might not even be on that team by the time this rolls around, but I think at that time, that's a player that can contribute quite nicely in that middle six. Then going on to Adam Lowry from the Winnipeg Jets. He's a guy that's kind of been weird over the past couple of seasons. I thought like in 2016 and 2017 he was a very solid player, but since then hasn't really been all too amazing. I think he can be a very serviceable third C though for the Seattle Kraken, and I think can produce quite well. And by the way, just so you guys know, sometimes when I'm trying to say Seattle Kraken, I'm kind of blanking because I'm still trying to realize that the Seattle Kraken are actually be a thing, and it's kind of getting to me at this point. Then going on to Brett Connolly, I think he's a player that definitely could be exposed by Florida. It could change by the time this expansion draft happens, but I think they will go over some other players. I think Petrano is a guy that I think I had Seattle taking him in my expansion draft in February. I don't think Petrano is going to be available at 2021, and I think Brett Connolly will be the guy there. Then going on to the fourth line, I have right now Sean Kuraly at the left wing, Ivan Barbashev from the Blues at center, and then on the right wing I have Anthony Beauvillier from the New York Islanders. Now I actually like this fourth line quite a bit. You have Sean Kuraly, who might just be one of the bigger blows for the Boston Bruins. I'm not really sure who they might end up selecting, but I think by 2021 Nick Ritchie might just be protected, and I think Sean Kuraly might just have to go. Same thing with Ivan Barbashev. When it comes to that Blues team, they have some excellent depth, and I think just like Sean Kuraly, Ivan Barbashev is a solid depth player, but by the time 2021 rolls around, the Blues might not have too many options besides him. Then going on to Anthony Beauvillier, I think he's a guy that's a very solid underrated player for the Islanders, but it's between him and guys like Kiefer Bellows, who I think by the time this rolls around will be maybe even a better player within the Islanders organization. And then going on to the forwards extras at this point, I have Drake Caggiula from the Chicago Blackhawks, Elias Anderson from the New York Rangers, Evgeny Svechnikov from the Detroit Red Wings, Michael McLeod from the New Jersey Devils, and Matt Luff from the LA Kings. Now going on to the defense, and I think this is where they really do shine in terms of potential options, and there is some nice depth when it comes to the forward core, but nothing too major, but that's a little bit different in the defense. When you go to the first pairing, it is amazing, at least for the first half. You have Jonas Brodin from the Minnesota Wild and Colin Miller from the Sabres. Now, I think him also unprotected in the last draft, but when it comes to this selection, it would depend on how Matt Dumba is playing in 2021. Personally, I think he will rebound as he gets a lot more rest, as he gets a lot more healthy. I think he will be back to his form, and maybe Jonas Brodin is traded by the time this happens, but as it stands right now, Seattle would love to take him, and let's say they do protect Jonas Brodin, I think Seattle would also take Matt Dumba, so it's an either-or situation there. Then you have Colin Miller, which unfortunately has just not been good with the Buffalo Sabres, which I don't blame him. It is really hard to be a good defenseman for the Sabres, and it's been proven by a lot of guys over the past few seasons. I think once he gets back into Seattle as that right defenseman, he'll be rebounding quite well. Then going on to the second pairing of Mattias Ekholm from the Nashville Predators and Adam Larsson from the Edmonton Oilers. Now in my last prediction video, I think I had Dante Fabro unprotected and Mattias Ekholm protected, and a lot of Predators fans were against that, and I think when it comes to that selection, it will depend obviously how Ekholm is playing then, but Ekholm is definitely one of the more underrated defensemen in the NHL today, and if they did have the choice, I don't think they would keep him unprotected obviously, but I think Dante Fabro is a guy that is very heavily valued in the Nashville organization, and I think after next season could definitely be up there, but if the Seattle team were to get a guy like Mattias Ekholm and Jonas Brodin as their top two left defensemen, that would be pretty nice, I'm just saying. Then you have Adam Larsson, who's a strong defensive defenseman. I don't think is anything too insane, but with the Edmonton Oilers, I think they would like to get that contract off the books. Again, that's another player that might be traded by the time this happens, but I think Seattle would love to have him. Then going on to that third pairing of Jamie Alexiak from the Dallas Stars and Josh Manson from the Anaheim Ducks. Now, in Josh Manson's case, he's a guy that could also be traded by 2021, and I wouldn't put it past the Ducks, but if he was available, I think he'd be a pretty great player to have for Seattle. Then you have Jamie Alexiak, who in my opinion is one of the most underrated defensive defensemen out there. As a Stars fan, he has done a ton for them over the last year, and I think could be a great bottom pairing guy for Seattle. And then you go on to the extras when it comes to the defensemen. Right now I have Hayden Fleury from the Carolina Hurricanes, Brendan Dillon from the Washington Capitals, and Brogan Rafferty from the Vancouver Canucks. Now Rafferty is a guy that might not be available, but it does depend how much he grows. He's right now in his mid-20s, so personally, I don't see him becoming a major part of that Canucks defense by the time this expansion draft rolls around, and I'm not sure if they protect him over a guy like a Tyler Myers or a Quinn Hughes. personally. And personally, I'm personally going to be saying personally a lot more. So personally, get used to that. Then going on to the goaltenders, and this is obviously the last part of this expansion draft, but this is a huge part of it in my opinion, and my computer just died. Okay, now back to the goaltenders. We can now get into their starting and backup goalie, and there is a lot of different options here, and there will be some guys like, I would say, Pittsburgh, where they'll have to choose between a guy like Matt Murray and a Tristan Jarry. I think if they'll choose one guy and then probably trade the other, which makes this a lot more difficult. But then going into the starting goaltenders, I think for the starter for Seattle in 2021, they'll have some good options, but I think Antti Raanta will be the choice. He's a guy that's been proven as a starter when healthy to be very solid for the Arizona Coyotes, and I think he'd be a pretty good starter choice for Team Seattle. Team Seattle, the Seattle Kraken. Then going on to the backup option for the Kraken, and I think this will be an interesting one because I think it'll come from the Colorado Avalanche. I think it will be Philip Grubauer. Now, Pavel Franco has done really solid with the Colorado Avalanche so far, which leads me to believe that he'll be the starter for the playoffs and potentially will be the starter for the next few seasons, which leaves Philip Grubauer in a weird position where he's been a decent starter, nothing special though, and for the Seattle Kraken, to get him as a backup, it's not bad whatsoever. And then going on to our two extra goaltenders, I have Aaron Dell from the San Jose Sharks and Joey Daccord from the Ottawa Senators. Now, Aaron Dell is a guy who has regressed over the past couple of seasons from his prime, but still, I think can be a decent goaltender, and if they need him as a backup, I think he can be pretty serviceable. And then you got Joey Daccord, who might be the best Ottawa Senators goaltending prospect, but I think he's a guy that might just have to be unprotected. I don't see him being protected over a guy like an Anders Nielsen, at least in 2021. We'll see what ends up happening, but I'm not sure Daccord makes that much progress to be considered as the protected pick, which again leaves him for Seattle, and I think would be a pretty good option as an AHL starter. But there you have it. That is my predictions for the Seattle Kraken expansion draft team. There are some things that obviously will change, and a lot of this does depend on free agents, where these guys go after this season, so I will be making a final expansion draft prediction probably in the months leading up to that expansion draft, but this is kind of a rough sketch of what this could potentially be. Obviously, I lifted more towards the defensemen, lifted more towards the goaltending side of things. The forwards are still decent, but when it comes to playoff hockey, I think Seattle knows the defense wins hockey games, and personally, I think that's the direction that they do end up going with. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below all your thoughts, of course, on my predictions. What do you agree and disagree with? And also let me know who you predict to be available for the Seattle expansion franchise and who you think the Seattle Kraken will take in that 2021 expansion draft. Make sure you share this video with friends. Get it out to all the Kraken the Kraken fans out there, and of course click on this card right here to watch all of my videos on the expansion franchise in one playlist. My name is Nathan. I love y'all faces, and I'll see you guys next video or stream. Goodbye.